This conference will now be recorded.
So in the last class, just we have seen the demo part, like the contents what we are going to discuss in our course. Let me just recap it one more time. So the course what we are going to learn here is full stack Java. And the contents what we are going to discuss is we go initially with core Java, even we call it as Java SC, stands for standard edition. And the use is used to develop standalone or desktop applications. Desktop applications. The examples of desktop applications are like Notepad, Paint, Calculator, MS Office, all these are desktop applications. Then we go with the next one, web technologies. Even we call it as user interface design. And here we'll be learning the topics like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, TypeScript, XML, JSON, Angular. Right? Then the next category we go with advanced Java. Even we call it as Java EE, means enterprise edition. And the main use of going for enterprise edition is used to develop web applications. Then the next and very important category is like frameworks. Here we'll be learning two important frameworks like Hibernate Framework and Spring Framework. Hibernate and Spring. Hello, Sandeep Reddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi Sandeep Reddy. This side is Rashekar.
Hi.
Can I know who has shared the link to you?
I'm sorry.
Can I know who has shared the link to you, the contact person for you?
Rani Garu shared the link for me.
Okay, right. Yeah. Right. So just I'm briefing about our codes. Like the codes what we are going to learn is full stack Java, where we go with the contents like core Java, even we call Java SE standard edition, mainly used to develop standalone or desktop applications. And we go with the web technologies like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, TypeScript, XML, JSON, Angular. And we go with advanced Java like enterprise edition, mainly used to develop web applications. And we go with the major important part, frameworks, where we discuss two important frameworks. One is Hibernate Framework and one more is Spring Framework. Before we go with Spring Framework, even we discuss web services. And after Spring, even we go with microservices. Under Spring Framework, we'll be going with the modules like Spring Core or Bean module. Very important Spring is. Then Spring DAO module, where we go with three submodules like Spring JDBC, Spring ORM, where we integrate with Hibernate, Spring Data. Then we go with Spring MVC module, Spring Boot module, and Spring REST module. So these are the modules we'll be discussing under Spring. Then during our course, even we'll be going with the real-time tools. So yesterday we have done with the demo part where I've elaborated all these things, where I've elaborated like what contents we are going to discuss in core Java, everything I've elaborated properly. So I'll be sharing that recording also to you after the class. The people who have missed out yesterday, I'll be sharing that recording. Then the duration of our course goes with approximately 55 hours. Then the time of our class is Monday to Friday at 7 p.m. IST, and the class will go for maximum 1 hour. The class will go for maximum 1 hour. And whatever the GoToMeeting link you are having, you can use that same link to join the classes for this week and even next week. For next week also, the link will remain same. Right? So as a overview, these are the things what we discussed in the last class, and the session is getting recorded. The recordings will be shared to you after the class, right? And at the end of the class, I'll be sharing my email ID to you. To that email ID, you can send one test mail to me. Those who did not send it, you can send a test mail to me after the class. I'll be taking care of sending documents and recordings to you. It's a regular process every day. So anyone having any questions up to here? Sham Sharma, you are same person, right? Who joined yesterday?
Yes, sir. Actually, I was connected through
Yeah,
mobile. That's why I switched to laptop.
Okay, yeah. I noted the name as Sharma. Today you joined as I thought two different people. Okay,
No,
no
actually, that's my surname. Actually, sir,
worries.
Sharma.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Now, so before we go with any programming languages like C, C++, Java, .NET, Python, we should have some programming terminology background. So we should have some programming concepts background. Then entering into any programming language will be easy for us. So today the objective is we'll be going to discuss about programming concepts. So before we go to these programming concepts, a small question. Let us go with the definition program. So how will you define a program? We are going to write the programs. So how will you define a program?
The program is just a execution of statements that we write to perform
Right.
some function.
Right. Set of statements, collection of statements to perform a task. You can say like how to define a program is a program is a set of instructions given to a computer to perform a task. So the task can be like to find the area of a rectangle, to find total marks of a student, to calculate net salary of an employee, then to deposit an amount in the bank, to book a railway ticket, to add a book in the library, like this. These all things are called as tasks. So in order to perform a task, we need to write some set of instructions. That set of instructions, we call it as a program here. The instructions, we call it as program. Now, the next definition here is comments. So whenever we are writing the program, we make use of a concept called as comments. The main use of going for comment is like it's mainly to document your program. Whenever we write a program, we should document it. The need of documenting is like if any other people sees your program or you even yourself sees the program after a long time, you should able to understand what you are doing inside the program. More elaboration of your program is only we call comments. Okay, so you can select comments are used to document a program. Like you can mention what is the purpose of the program, on which date you are writing the program, who is the developer name, like that. So comments are used to document a program and ignored by the programming language. Programming language will not see what you are writing inside the comments. We are having two types of comments. We are having two types of comments. They are single line comment single line comment where we use a symbol // and multi-line comment where we use a symbol /* and end with again //. Like example, when we say // we'll say like this: to find area of a rectangle. Then one more example, /* to find gross salary and net salary of an employee, like this. So this is for multi-line comment. So for single line we use // and end with / is multi-line comment. So what is the need of commenting? More elaboration of your program, and whatever we are writing in comments, that is ignored by the language. Language will not see what you are writing. Okay. The next definition here is keyword. The next definition is what here? Keyword. The meaning of keyword is like, whenever we take any programming language like C, C++, Java, .NET, Python, every programming language will have some predefined words where your language can understand automatically. Those words only we call it as keywords. You can define a keyword like, a keyword is a reserved word whose meaning is known to the programming language directly. So the language can understand these words automatically. They are keywords. So some of the common keywords where every programming language uses, like something like, if it is object oriented, we use class. Then we go for if, while, do, for, break, continue, then public, private, like this. These are some of the basic keywords. The next thing is variable. This is very, very important. If you are totally new to programming, these terminologies are very important. Variable. The meaning of variable is like, whenever we want to store some data, like example, if you want to store something like age, we require some memory space to store the data. If you want to store something like name, we require some memory space. If you want to store something like salary, we require some memory space. So the name what you are giving to the memory space, these names only we call it as what? Variables. So variables are mainly used to hold the data, to store the data. So how to define a variable is like, a variable is an identifier which allocates some memory space. It's going to allocate some memory space. Examples of variables like a roll number, student name, net salary, then customer address, like this. The next definition, this is also very important as a beginner, data type. Data type. Now, once we allocate memory space for variable, like example age, when we take age, what type of data we store? Like generally we store something like 20 or 30, like that. So a numeric value without any decimal point, we call it as integer data type. Call it as what? Integer. If you take something like name, then in name we store some value like collection of characters like alphabets, then we call it as string. The data type we call it as string. Collection of characters only we call string. If you go something like height, in height, we store a value something like 5.9, 5.9. So when you are having a numeric value with the decimal point, we call it as float. A value with the decimal points, we call it as float type. So the type of data what you are storing in the variables, the type of data what you are storing in the variables, that only we call data type. How to define a data type is like type of data, the variable holds is called as data type. Some of the examples of data type like int, char. When you say char, is value with single quotes. Only one symbol should be there. Within single quotes is character. We'll discuss more on all these things once we enter into Java programming. Everything, whatever I'm discussing, I'm going to recap all these things with the Java syntaxes when we come to Java basics. Okay. Float, string, like this. Now, the next definition is function or method. In C++, we call function, whereas in the case of Java.NET, we call method. Both the meanings are same. What is a function is, how to define a function is, a function is a subprogram, means a part of the program, which is used to do a specific task. Which is used to do a specific task. It's a part of the program. That's the reason we call it as subprogram. Okay. This concept is very, very important. You should be good enough with functions. However, we do a lot of example programs in Java technology about these functions. But before we enter into Java, we should have a basic idea on what is a function. Like example, we want to find the area of a rectangle. The task what we want to do, we want to find area of a rectangle. So this task we want to do inside a function. So this task we want to do what? Inside a function. So we'll create a function like this, area rect, and we attend with the parenthesis. So and open and close curly braces. This is the way how function looks. Some name XYZ, and at the end we see parenthesis. If you see parenthesis, they are what? Functions. And open and close curly brace means the function begins at this open curly brace and ends at closing curly brace. Now, in order to find area of a rectangle, what input do you require? What data do you require to find area of a rectangle? Anyone?
Length.
Length and breadth. Yeah, length and breadth we require. So the data what we require to perform the task, that data we need to pass in between this parenthesis like this, int length, comma, int breadth. So we have to mention the data type of variable also. Then only it is going to allocate memory for your variable. Okay. So we have to, whenever you take a variable like length, breadth, these are variables. So in order to allocate memory space for variable, we have to mention what type of data we are going to store before the variable name. The data what we pass, the variables what we pass in between these parentheses, we call them as arguments or parameters. We call them as arguments or parameters. Now, in order to find area of a rectangle, what is the formula?
Length into breadth.
Length into breadth. So we'll say area equal to length into breadth. Now, since we are using a variable area, whenever we use a variable in your program, we need to declare it. Why? What is the need of declaration? To allocate memory. Let me document that also. Declaration of variable. What is the need of declaration of variable? In order to allocate memory space for variable, we need to declare the variable. We need to declare the variable, and the syntax is, the meaning of syntax is rules of a language. Rules of a language. The syntax is, we have to go with the data type, then space variable 1 comma variable 2 comma like this, variable x. Example, we can say int a comma b, float f like this. Then only it allocates memory space for variables, then we can store the data. Similar way, here we are using a variable area to store area of rectangle. So we have to allocate memory space for area to store the data. So we have to declare it like this. Inside the method, we have to declare the variable like this. Then we can use the variable area to store the area of rectangle. Now, whatever we are writing, whatever the code we are writing inside a method, we call it as defining the method. Defining the method. Then now we have to call it. So the meaning of calling is like, if you are having some idea on Excel, in Excel we use some formulas like sum formula, average formula, count formula, like that. Count functions, they are called as functions. Sum function, average function, count function, they are called as functions. So when we use sum, means you are calling the function there. You are calling the function. Similar way, once we define the method, we have to call it. How to call? Calling the method. How to call the method? Like this, area rect, and pass the values 10 comma 5. So when you say area rect 10 comma 5, this 10 will come and store into length variable, 5 will come and store into breadth variable. Then what will be the value of area will be now?
50.
50, right? The value of area will be what? 50. This 50, I want to give it to this method. When you call this result, this output, I want to return it back. I want to give it to outside of your method. Then we have to use a keyword return. We have to use a keyword return area. So what is going to happen now? When you say return area, the value what is present in area, in our example 50, that 50 will be returned back to this method here. That 50 will be returned back to this method. If you say like this, int area equal to, this 50 will come and store into this method, which I am assigning to area. And if you print this area value, then what it's going to display for us? 50 here. Then the important point here, the value whatever you are returning area is what data type here? What is the data type?
Integer.
Integer.
What is the data type of area? Integer. You can see here. The data type of area is what? Integer. So whatever the value you are returning, whatever the data type you are returning outside of your method, before the method name, we have to mention the type of data what you are returning. Before the method name, we have to mention that data type what you are returning. Mentioning data type before the method name what you are returning. This concept we call it as a return type. This concept we call it as what? A return type. Okay. Now, so by seeing this, how the syntax of function looks now, can easily say return type, then method name, we have to pass the arguments, and in between curly braces, we write the code here. Or simple words to say statements. Statement 1, statement 2 like that, statement n, and finally we'll say return. This is the way how the method or function looks. Now, if you take the same thing, if you take the same code, And here we don't want to return the value outside of your method. We don't want to give the value of result outside of your method. We want to print here only. We want to print this area here only. Since you are not returning any value outside of your method, if you are not returning any value outside of your method, then before the method name, we have to use the return type as void. We have to use what return type? Void. Void means no return type. Means you are not giving any value outside of your method. Clear everyone? How the method or function looks? These are very, very important terms because once we enter into Java, so these all terms I'm going to make use of it. So we'll be making use of keywords, variables, data types, methods, arguments, return type, all the things will come in our programs. So when I use this terminology, once I start with introduction of Java, you should not feel confused what are these terms. That's the reason I'm discussing all these terms today before we enter into Java. Got it? Any questions, anyone?
No, sir.
Right? Yeah. So let me stop here today. So today and tomorrow also I'll be taking less time, and from day after tomorrow, the time will get increased near to 50 to 60 minutes. But it never crashes 1 hour for us. We can plan accordingly. Okay. So as it is initial stage and some more new people may join us. So tomorrow also the class will go approximately 30 to 35 minutes. And from next class onwards, the time will get increased for us. Okay. And tomorrow I'm going to start off with the Java introduction. Tomorrow we'll go with Java introduction. The next class will go with Java features. Then the next one will be entering into the practical part, like we'll be seeing how to download Java and install Java on our system, and we'll be developing Java applications. Correct. Yeah. Just a second.
So you noted